Hi, and welcome back. So I've got a new page. I've got it all framed off with masking tape all the way around. I did two videos recently with molding paste, and it's time to do something new. And I thought I'd love to show you a little trick I have making faux marble. You use these Stabilo Woody. These come from the UK, and there are companies that supply them, and you can sometimes on Amazon get them fairly quick. Sometimes it takes longer. Anyway, I'm going to start off with just a plain little pencil, fairly fine point if you can use one, and I'm using my left hand so that I can't over contrive it. I want it to be very random and organic. So I'm making some fine scratchy lines with a pencil because that won't bleed or spread or anything. It will always stay as it is. But when I go over top of some of the areas with the Stabilo Woody, which is full of watercolor pigment, you'll see what happens. So I'm not following it completely, and as you can see, I'm rocking and rolling the pencil crayon as I use it, and that keeps it even more fun and organic. I'm trying to create a marble, which is stone. Now, I'm no geologist, but I do know enough about marble that you can see some fine lines, you can see some heavier, and sometimes they sort of move and crack in a direction. So that's what I did. I kept a diagonal direction. Look what happened when I sprayed water over top. How fun that is, how that Stabilo Woody, especially the black one, how the pigment spreads when you activate it with water. That's a lot of fun. Already it's starting to look like marble. And you could do this same technique, keeping it in black and white and shades of gray, and then do a very, very pale color over top. But we're going to do my favorite two colors, Quinacridone Nickelazzo Gold and Quinacridone Magenta, just to make it a more colorful marble. I don't know if there are any marbles that exist in the colors I'm going to do, but I'm an artist. I can make it how I want. Now I dab that back with tissue gently, and just to lift some of the black. I don't want it to be too muddy, and I decided to go over a few more areas with the Stabilo Woody just to and sprayed it with water just to activate it, just to give a darker impression in just a couple of areas where I wanted it. You can control that as you like. You can spray and wipe it back, or you could add more. And then I thought I would just take that pencil and continue that crack line down to the bottom of the page. So there you go. There's the basic setup for the marble. I'm just trying to add a little bit more cracking where it makes sense. But that's pretty much how I do marble. And the rest is just how I glaze over top. And I say glaze because I don't want to lose this beautiful marbling texture that I've created. So if I do a transparent glaze over top, I won't lose that. Now it's completely dry. A lot of fun. But I'm going to protect that page with matte medium, a good coat of matte medium over top. But because you can see that that Stabilo Woody is very activated with water, it would also activate with spreading too hard with a brush with the matte medium over top. So I'm barely coasting the brush over top of these darker areas where the Stabilo Woody is, just to put a layer of matte medium down first to fix that, and then I'm just very, very, very lightly and gently spreading it around over top. I don't want to smear that Stabilo Woody, and I would suggest practicing that. If you're new to this, practice it on a scrap paper first, and you'll get an idea how gentle you have to put the brush over top before it smears. I sped some of that brushing over top up so that I don't waste time. Now, before it completely dries, I want to add a few splashes of this white fluid paint, which I've got in a dispenser, and I'm just putting a few dabs down, and I'm going to spread it around. Now that covered a little too much, so I'm going to have to dab some back. But the reason why I'm doing this before the matte medium dries is so that they blend together and it becomes a transparent white glaze more than a white opaque cover-up. And again, I'm going very, very gently. You can see that smeared a little. I'm going to spray and dab some of that back. That Stabilo Woody is very, very active. You've got to make sure you fix it first. So I just dabbed a little of that white back to reveal more of that marbling that I love. I like if you go and look at slabs of marble, you'll see that it's not a consistent crack line throughout. There are many different interesting characters and textures and patterns to it. So this is my attempt. It might not be perfect, but to me it looks like marble. So here I have my two favorite colors, which are transparent, semi-transparent. I might use the Indian yellow, but probably not. And I've got my lovely rigger brush, which is very long but soft, delicate bristles, and that helps move the paint around the page in a nice organic way. And you'll see when I apply this that watch my hand, I'm rotating and spinning around that brush as I move it down in a diagonal direction. And that way it keeps it. That's the same pattern I used with the Stabilo Woody when I drew those lines. So I'm kind of rocking the brush around the same way I did the pencils and following this sort of diagonal line. Now, because there's a lot of water, you can see how fun that color is flowing like a river. And because there's a little bit of bubbling in the paper, I'm trying to weigh it down a little bit with something heavy so that it encourages that to spread throughout. Isn't that fun? I just love, love, love watching paint flow. As soon as I removed that, it started going back in the other direction. So what I did was I propped up something thick in the middle of the spine so that it could flow from left to right. And I'm encouraging that by weighing down that side. I didn't want to use a brush to apply it over there because I wanted it to look more organic, which it does. Isn't that fun? And wherever I want to lift a little bit of the darker color, I just use the edge of a Kleenex and I barely dab it, and that way it lifts it a little bit without smudging it. I don't want to smudge that beautiful flow that I've created. And I'm using a tissue, a Kleenex, rather than paper towel because that paper towel is heavier and it has a pattern on it, and I do not want to apply any pattern to it, which I do as a trick often, but not in this case. So a light, delicate tissue, Kleenex, is the best way to lift some of that. And I'm just using a little more of it, and again, rotating that brush around in an organic way. I'm creating a very definite diagonal line from top left to bottom right, as if you've zoomed in on one section of a piece of marble. I hope you try this because once you get the hang of it, it's really quick and easy and a lot of fun. Later on, I'm going to show you an end use that I will do with this technique, because I do like to show you where you can take it from the Mixed Media Art Journal. Again, this is an inspiration book, so this should give you inspiration to do what I'm going to show you at the end. So stay tuned to the final end because you'll see how wonderful this can be for you for future projects. Now it's completely dry, and it's very dark there where it was fairly thickly laid on with the Nicolazo Gold. Now I'm going to use the Quinacridone Magenta, but I know there's a lot of pigment in that tube. So I'm going to put water down first, then add a drop. Look how strong that is. That's too strong to put on my page. What I'm trying to go for on the page now is a very delicate, light, soft, pale pink glaze. That's almost too strong, so I'm going to add some more water. And I've got that brush in a jar of water to even get rid of all that darker pink. So now I'll try it out on the test paper. It's going to look similar, but I know it's more transparent because I've added more water. And before I add it to the page, I want to spray water to help that move around and flow like the orange did. Again, my goal here is to keep it really pale at first. I always like to start off really, really light for my glazes, and I can always, once it dries, add darker layers later on. But I want to really, really keep this delicate because marble has areas where it goes soft and delicate, it goes almost white, and then you can get your shades of black or gray or brown or whatever. So again, I'm going to follow the same idea, wiggling that brush around as I use it, but keeping this really pale, and it will dry even more pale. It's already looking like a chunk of stone or granite. I'm calling it marble though. Before it dried, I decided I wanted to just have, instead of any white on the page, I'm spreading this around with my hand so that I've got very pale pink everywhere. And even over top of the orange, it doesn't alter that color. It's so pale and transparent. And before it dries completely, I'm just allowing some of the heavier areas, I'm encouraging it to flow in different directions by moving the book. This is such an easy, fun technique. You just have to have patience. Patience is required when you need to let it dry well between layers because it's so tempting to want to just get it all done. But the way this technique works is by doing it in layers and letting each one dry so that you can see where you need to enhance as needed and not overdoing it. That's beautiful. I love that pale pink as a background now. Let that dry. When I do my hands like that, it means I let it dry naturally. I do not use a blow dryer. If you use a blow dryer, you're going to blast away all those channels of paint in the direction that you don't want. So when I do that, it means let it dry and let it spread as it wants. And as it spreads around the page when it's drying, and it blends in beautifully without usually any strong, sharp lines. Now that it's almost dry, it's not completely dry, and the reason why I'm doing it before it dries completely is the page is damp, but it's not wet. So what's happening is this new darker layer of pink that I put over top sits on the surface, and it does bleed and blend a little into the damp page, but it doesn't overdo it. And it allows some of that pink to stay on the surface where I've applied it. So now I'm just trying to decide where I want to blend some of the pink and the orange. I say orange, it's the Nicolazo Gold. These colors look really good together on top of each other, so that's why I don't mind doing this. I'm tempted to do another one someday where I use pale blue and green. That will make a beautiful shade as well and make it look almost like pearl, but with this marbling technique. So I'm just sort of using the fun of that brush to create shapes and patterns. So even though it looks like there's some white paper, I know it's not bone white because I did allow a bit of a white glaze everywhere. So it's just the lightest shade of pale imaginable without being almost white. I love how this is turning out. The bottom right looks a little splotchy there with the pink, but it won't dry like that. That's just how the water is sitting on the surface. So I'm just coaxing around again. If I used a different brush, I wouldn't get this effect. I really like the rigger brush because it's just delicate. And marble is delicate. It's a hard stone, but it's a delicate look. Look at that. I love, love, love watching the flow of the paint and how it settles. You can use this technique for so many different things. It's a really, really good technique to master. Remember, this is going to dry lighter. It's bubbling like it does to look like little dots because there's matte medium on the surface, and that's just how the paint's sitting over top of that matte medium, which is like painting over top of glass, really. It's quite smooth, so it doesn't know how to spread, but we'll see what happens. Let that dry, and there you go. It's spread out and dried. Look how beautiful that is. I'm only concerned about that one little area, and I'm not even overly concerned. You can see a bit of a line there. It looks like a pencil line from when the pink paint dried. I'm adding a little water to see if I can activate that and smudge that line right there, because I didn't want that there as a circle. It's too dry, so that's not activating. So I'll live with it. It's not outrageous. It looks like a pencil line anyway. I'm almost done. I don't want to overdo this. In fact, I could have stopped, but I thought I would just sort of deal with some of that white looking area there. Introduce more of the gold. You don't have to. You could decide at this point to have it in the pink direction or the gold direction. So fun. You could do this technique on large pieces of paper and make wrapping paper. It would be amazing, absolutely amazing wrapping paper. Or use it as a book cover. And watch till the end, because I'll give you a link to how I make a book, and you could use this technique on the cover. It would be amazing. Way back before I started doing some of these techniques, I used to buy the pattern papers to make things. But now I've learned how to do them myself, and I get so much more joy. Oh, look at that pink spread. I get so much more joy when I make my own patterns and when I make my own books. Look at how fun that pink spreads. And watch this section here. I've got fairly dark magenta there, and look at that bloom. That's just amazing. I love watching that. It will spread and settle even more as the page dries, so I don't want to touch it. I'm just applying a little more of the heavier magenta where I want the line to be a little more obvious, just to balance the weight of the gold around the page as well. You could stop at any point, as I said, and if you find this is a little too bold and strong, when it's completely dry, you could do a coat of matte medium with a hint of white in it, blend it up really well, and then use that as a very semi-transparent white glaze, and you could soften the whole look even more if you like. So I'm going to let that dry. In the meantime, I'm going to show you what you can do. I've got a video where I make a book just like this, but it's a square book. But I'll show you step by step how to make this book. I did that with molding paste on the cover, and then I did a very delicate glaze of blue and green to make it. I was going for a pearl effect, and I think it worked. I made pockets in the covers. This is going to be my book for writing quotes and things that are important to me. So I don't want the pages to be dark and full of heavy paint. I want to be able to take a pen and write over top. So I would encourage that you could do this marble technique, as I will do. I'm going to do this technique on these white pages, but I'm going to really be delicate, more delicate than my lesson today. I'm going to be delicate like that pearl. And that way I can write over top with pen and not ruin it. So here's the journal, the video for making that book. Again, that book was made as a square, but the one I showed you is rectangle. Same thing, I show you how to make it, so please check that out. In the meantime, here we have the dried page now, and I love it. And again, it's too strong to use as a journal. I would tone that down a lot. But there you go. I love making these for you. Please like and share and make comments if you like. I love your comments. And I try to post every Friday, so who knows what I'll come up with next week, but I do try to mix it up because this is an inspiration book, and the whole idea is to give me ideas for future projects, and I hope it helps inspire you. Have a great day, and thank you.